How's it going, everybody? What's happening in the world? Well, I'm back from whatever I've been doing, making another video here with my serious hat. I'm dead serious. Dead serious. I got this thing. I found this thing earlier, and it was just a bucket. And sitting in the living room. And I picked it up, I grabbed my paint, and I painted it to say, I'm serious. And at the last minute, I decided not to say I'm serious, because that wouldn't have been serious enough. I decided to say I am serious. That may, you can just feel the sincerity in it. And, you know, so take me seriously, please, for a minute. I'm totally being sarcastic. I have to make that disclaimer, because people, guaranteed somebody out there will think I'm being serious. Actually, seriously being serious. Oh great, how do I even label that? The joke is within itself. What do you say? My head is scattered. My thoughts are scattered. Ordinarily, I would start this video over and just be like, what am I saying? I'm mumbling, but you know what? That's okay. It keeps me functional. And in fact, some of the ones where I mumble end up being some of my favorite videos, at least in my opinion. You know, I'm out here talking on camera, trying to get my thoughts out in the world. And what exactly am I trying to convey? You know, I've gone through phases where I don't really have anything to say. I mean, the last couple days, I was sick the other day, but like yesterday, today I haven't really had a whole lot to talk about. I made a couple videos earlier. But it's not just things to talk about, but rather I'm talking about the things I'm thinking about. But today I do have a subject in mind. And it has to do with our perceptions of people. And I guess this is kind of why I'm wearing the serious hat, you know, because it's such a joke. We take life so seriously sometimes, and we forget to bitch slap ourselves, you know? It's just like, what? You know, I was talking with my son today. We went to rent a U-Haul and pick up a couch, and on the way we had a little discussion. He said he was getting into Hinduism, and he's 21, by the way, and he's been getting into sage and crystals and rocks and stuff like that. And so I'm just letting him go through his whole cycle, because I've been there, and I totally... And I'm not saying I've been there like, ho, he'll grow out of it. I'm saying I've been really interested in those things too, and I still am, actually. I've got my little altar over here with all my stones and stuff. And eventually he'll grow to find something that works for him in life, whatever works for him. But that's, of course, not what this discussion is about. But it led me to think about people and perceptions of one another, and perceptions of intention, and why we think the way we think about other people. So I'm going to try to give you an example so I'm not just rambling. If you have an incident with someone, and then the next time you see them, let's say you think that they're being standoffish, or you think they're being perhaps, maybe you don't even have an incident with somebody. Let's just say you go to work and somebody seems to be being very rude to you. And you come to find out later that they've had a death in their family and they're just not doing well. And the whole day long you're sitting there thinking that you've done something wrong to piss them off, or a friend that won't call you. For example, this is a better one. You have a friend that you've been texting, and all of a sudden they're just not keeping in touch, and people think, well, what did I do wrong? Why don't they like me? Or you know, or what's their problem? And then they start coming up with all these ideas of what the actual issue is, and come to find out that it has nothing to do with you at all. You know, and this is so common. I see this. Sometimes when I have a certain, you know, behavior, someone will ask, are you mad at me? You know, just because I'm quiet for a minute. It's really funny, because I am a talkative person. So when I'm really quiet and withdrawn, people are always thinking, you know, what's wrong? What's wrong? So this is just one of, you know, billions of people with their own little quirks and their little emotions and their little incidents. We misinterpret so much shit in life. I mean, it's so far out there. This comes up a lot with psychedelic usage, and I guess I don't want to delve too much into psychedelics, but when a person's under the influence of, say, mushrooms or LSD, you can get stuck in a feedback loop, and this is what creates bad trips. You start to think that something's wrong, and you compound that part of the brain that processes that. It gets in a feedback loop, and then you think things are worse and worse. And I've seen people who think that somebody in the room's mad at them, or they think that everyone's watching them. They get paranoid, and they start to worry and worry and worry about it. And this is because your front brain, your thinking part, I guess, if you want to say it, you know, your frontal cortex is basically shutting down, and the rest of your brain's making connections. Well, this same type of feedback loop that can happen without psychedelics. I mean, obviously, psychedelics just amplify our existing fears and anxieties. So if we have a daily experience where we're constantly a little bit in fear of something, a psychedelic experience can often bring that out, and this is how a person deals with those things and laughs it off and realizes that it wasn't as big of a deal. It allows you to take the problem and set it right next to yourself and say, is this really a problem? And that to me is fascinating. That's what psychedelics have helped me to see. But they've also helped me in my daily life to see that when these behaviors come out, I start to understand why they're happening. That if I have a certain reaction to someone, it might be because I was primed with a certain word, or a person says something that, hits me in a weak spot. And I'll tell you on that note, and this is what exactly what I told my son earlier. I said, you've got to weed out the weak spots. If somebody punches you below the belt, you've got to ask yourself, what does below the belt mean? What could a person possibly say to really offend you that bad? They could say, oh, well, you're just ignorant, or you just didn't go to enough school, let's say. And if you feel uncomfortable with your education, I know a lot of people who can't spell, can't read and write very well, and they're very, many of them are very afraid to type or write anything, or let people know because they don't want to be ridiculed. But in my eyes, most of the people I know like that are just some of the smartest damn people. But the rest of society has programmed them to think that that makes them inferior, if that makes sense. So anyway, when a person calls another, or hits a person below the belt, or calls them a name, the whole idea is to realize that you just have to not have anything that can be attacked. Every time someone attacks me and it offends me, I say, okay, that's something I need to work on, so I don't feel offended by that anymore. And amidst all these life changes, mind changes that we go through, the different ideas we have, we tend to take things way too seriously. And we tend to dwell on what other people are thinking, or maybe thinking. And I know this for a fact because we all do it. It's something that in human nature that we have to have. It's not something you can get rid of. Just like judgment. And if you want to get into judgment, that's a big long discussion. Can a person really not see color when they see a person? I think it's complete hogwash to assume that we can. That we can actually look past color of a person, or race, or even sex for that matter. We can mentally process the fact that this person is just like me, and then go on with the discussion. But the initial impact we have when we see somebody first is, oh, it's a black guy, or it's a white guy, or whatever, you can't. It's like looking at different colored cats and not seeing the differences. My point being that we are often so stuck in our fear of being judged or judging others that we don't even know what's really going on. So, which brings me, I guess, to the point, which is that there are a lot of people who want to tell you what's going on out there, and most of them are completely full of shit. And this comes out of a little bit of sadness and in my heart that I have towards the spiritual or New Age or truth movement, any of these new movements that are trying to, I shouldn't say new, but any group that's trying to make a change in the world is often, it's not that the intention goes away. The intention remains. But a person can become so convinced that what they believe is what's really going on in the world that everything else falls by the wayside and nobody else matters. Everyone else is a liar or a shill, whatever it might be. I guess an example would be, somebody sent me a video the other day from, it's one of the top alien UFO researcher guys. Can't even remember his name at the moment, but he's got glasses. He's the one who supposedly, he created the film Sirius, this, that's funny. Not Sirius like Sirius, but Sirius like the star. It was a documentary about, basically, a disclosure, the disclosure thing. And he's the one who's talking about how there's going to be disclosure. And he's got all these followers that believe what he's saying, which is that, which may be true. I'm not disputing it. I'm just making an example. He's saying that the government, has UFOs, that they've been hiding free energy, and that his idea is that he wants to disclose it because he wants everyone to have the free energy. And So I guess he's been making claims that if he only had a few million, you know, he might be able to, they might be able to create this free energy device and to, you know, promote it. He's collected a lot of public funding for his movies and stuff like that. The point is, he's doing well getting donations. So my thought, after watching this guy for years, is that when he first started doing this, he probably had great intentions and did it for the right reasons. Maybe not, though. I heard somebody say that he was following, you know, kind of the old L. Ron Hubbard thing. You know, he's the founder of Scientology, and he said back in the 50s, if you want to make real money, start a religion. And that was from his words before Scientology was even a group. It's a business venture, okay? So my belief is that a lot of these guys end up getting so wrapped up into what they believe that it's all they know. So let's just say that a person in the late 90s or whatever, 20 years ago, starts researching UFOs. Now, up till now, they'd be able to pull all this new information as the internet builds, and all these new evidence comes out from other countries that they've seen UFOs, captured UFOs, reports of aliens and whatnot. And then you hit a brick wall where there's no new information coming out, to where the internet's available. Everyone who's going to say something has said it. All the true information that's going to come out has come out. And the last resort is to expect disclosure from the government. Like, as if they are going to come out and just say, okay, we have UFOs, we have free energy, here, everybody have your devices now. In other words, my question is, what's the end game? To me, what the game that a lot of these guys are playing, they're the game of, say, Occupy Wall Street, where the original intention was, hey, we want to know the truth and we want fairness and equality, but we don't really know exactly how to go about it, and we don't agree exactly on the details of what we really want. And with the UFO community, it's exactly the same way. They're like, they can't seem to agree on anything, and it's not just UFOs. I mean, all the truther communities that are out there trying to promote it. These are the people who we flock to believe. When I'm recommended to go view somebody, I've usually heard of them. I mean, I've listened to most speakers, you know, all these guys like Jordan Maxwell and you know, of course, I've studied Sitchin, and all these guys. I've come to my conclusion that Sitchin was full of shit, and that many people since him are also full of shit. And Sitchin is the one who proposed Nibiru. He claimed to translate the Sumerian tablets, you know, decades ago. And since then, some inconsistencies came up with the newer translations, and you know, you start to see that there's metaphors in there, but, you know, if trying to prove, and Nibiru is a good example, trying to prove that there's a literal, you know, extra planet or planet X. There are people who wake up every day and they constantly research planet X, trying to find new evidence by saying, hey, look, the planets are heating up, or the star's doing this, look at what the sun's doing. And 6 years ago, I actually believed it, and I was looking for evidence like everyone else, and I'd go and I'd look at the earthquake reports, and I'd see the disaster reports. I'd look for what viruses are coming up on the RSOE website, and you'd see these little waves of things happening, and then there'd be an earthquake, and somebody would say, oh, here it comes, here it comes. Oh, no, nothing happened. Then the next week, oh, there's a solar flare. Oh, here it comes, here it comes. The grid's going to get taken out. Oh, no. And as a former doomer, if you will, which I've always had a positive outlook, but I've always believed that in my lifetime the shit's going to hit the fan, put it that way. I didn't stop believing that. I just stopped giving a shit. And I stopped listening to these people trying to tell us what they think is going on or what the government should be doing. At the same time, I totally respect the fact that a lot of these guys are out there pushing and prying on doors that need to be open. So I'm not dismissing the entirety of the community who's the truther movement, if you want to. And when I say truther, I include anybody who's talking about conspiracies from 9/11 to JFK, whatever it might be, you know, false flag attacks, shootings, you know, the New World Order, all this stuff, but also aliens, you know, the whole extraterrestrial communication. By the way, the guy I was talking about was Stephen Greer, I just remembered. He's actually claimed that he's, you know, been contacted by aliens, and he held this little, like, free lecture, but then he had these $995 seminars where he would teach you how to be what he called an ambassador to the universe. And I guess what inspired me to talk about Greer was that I saw a video debunking him or talking shit about him, and it had so many thumbs down, so many more than thumbs up, meaning that the Stephen Greer fans are obviously flocking to try to stand up for him, whereas the rest of the community could really give less of a shit. And so I'm not here to... I really don't like to diss on particular people, but unless you make examples of particular people, future folks will tend to take on that same type of, bullshit. If you don't call out bullshit where you see it, then more bullshit arises, okay? And, maybe he's done what he says. He claimed that he gave a press conference to the Obama administration, and then he was pried a little bit. I saw an interview, and he was like, well, it was one of his top officials, and then he's like, well, it was kind of a CIA briefing, and you start getting the details, and you realize that so many people are really talking themselves up to think that they're important, and that what they have to say is important. And it's kind of depressing, because there are a lot of people out there who have really important things to say. It's rare. Once in a while I find a channel, every couple months or so I find a channel of somebody who talks just like me, And I'm so inspired, and I'll watch the whole video, and the person who really is, into what they believe, and open to differences. Like, for example, a subscriber of mine the other day, he said I inspired him to make his first video, or a video, and he said he gave out a shout out to me on his video, so I checked it out, and he was like his first, trying to learn to talk to the camera and whatnot, not sure what to say. That video meant more to me watching it than any 20-minute informative piece, because it was a human, and what he said was something simple like, I can't believe that people just... I think he's English. If you're out there, I can't remember who it was. He says, I can't believe people are just out there and they just don't care, or they don't pay attention. I can't remember exactly how he put it, but the feeling you can get from watching somebody talk about something is so much more important than somebody reading a script that they pre-wrote, or folks who show a lot of pictures in their videos and have really scary music and really deep voices, and they're really intense and they really draw you in. In other words, clickbait's becoming... standard YouTube videos are becoming clickbait now. Like, if I wanted to entitle my video Illuminati Conspiracy 2017, I'd probably get thousands of hits in one day. And, that's clickbait. And people are doing it, but they're doing it slickly, I don't know. I don't want to get to the point where I'm like dissing on other people, but fucking A, people need to be called out on stuff. That's the way I feel about it. Hey, who am I to talk, man? I'm just serious. Well, I kind of went from, kind of wandered on this video from talking about, the way we recognize people and the bullshit that we think is going on in their heads when it's really not. The reason why I transferred into, or segued into talking about people who are truthers, or conspiracies, or disclosure and all this, was because many of those folks are just assuming what's going on in the heads of politicians, or corporations, or people who are in high power positions. We start to assume that everyone's out to get us. And this is pretty much the pinnacle of what I'm trying to talk about here. Is the main point is that we are full of shit, okay? We as a society, and what we think is going on in the world, we are full of shit. And we as individuals, what we think is going on in the world, we're definitely full of shit. And somebody said something, my brother, I think on a comment earlier, my brother said something on Facebook about, Trump and how, how can people believe that excluding people from the country, yada yada, whatever, political thing. And I just said, because people listen to what other people are telling them. They refuse to look at things rationally or do the work themselves. People would rather hear somebody tell them what's going on in the world of aliens, what's going on in the world of truthers, conspiracies, 9/11, and then they start getting so involved in something that their views become biased towards something that they can't prove. And then when somebody else asks for proof on that, they're asked to provide proof that the other person's not right. In other words, when a truther comes out and somebody calls them out on something, then the truther can say, well, you're wrong, what I say is right, and that's just the way it is. I mean, I don't really know how else to put it. Everybody's a shill, everybody's a liar, an agent, everybody's out to get us. But you don't realize that most people don't want to spend their lives here on Earth, you know, going around YouTube or, you know, shilling on comments just to, you know, for some little YouTube channel to try to stop them from talking or whatnot, or to try to, I guess I'm getting off track there. It's kind of hard to explain what I'm saying, because I know that there is a lot of, what do you call it, I guess, you know, free speech is not always so free. People who talk too much get their, you know, get their tongues cut out. That's just how it works, you know, and we know that there are some people who have revealed serious information who have, you know, disappeared. But for the most part, a lot of these guys who are out there revealing all this information, who are claiming that, you know, the government's watching them and whatnot, nothing ever happens to them. You know, they just go along with their lives and they pass, and then you find out after they died or years later that the information they had was mistaken, but they made plenty of millions of dollars talking about it. And so that's my way of saying, I guess, that maybe it's like religion. You know, maybe people flock to these guys because they really want to believe what they're saying is true. And maybe in their hearts, they know that it might not be 100% true. But it's much better for them to have a group of people that they can bounce these ideas off of and discuss things with. And I guess I can respect that for what it is, as long as they're not promoting it as the only truth. And, yeah. Anyway, it's a long video about nothing, but that's how I feel about something. So, I'm dead serious about that. It's true. You can ask my bucket. Talk to you.